Hello, my loves, and welcome to Healing the Podcast with your host, Ashlyn Torrey. I am a heels and burlesque instructor, a confidence mentor, and the creator of Studio Soli Luna, living in the gorgeous mountains of Asheville, North Carolina. In this safe and sacred portal, we will be having raw, real, and intentional conversations about dancing in a heel, spirituality, self-love, the dance industry, and all the taboo topics that dancers and women should be openly talking about. I am so excited to go on this journey with you. Now let the magic begin. Hello, my loves, and welcome back to another episode of Healing the Podcast. I hope you had such a beautiful holiday weekend and you were able to spend it with friends, with family, enjoy yummy food, get outside, however you celebrate the holidays. I know that the holidays can be hard for a lot of people, and that's why I wanted to bring you this episode today all about mental health. I think this topic now more than ever is important, and people struggle around the holidays. I struggle around the holidays with my mental health, and I feel like a lot of bad things can happen when we aren't taking care of our mental health and when we aren't putting ourselves and our mental space as a priority. And so that's what this episode is all about, really just how to move through this time of year with your mental health in a really good space, how to overcome anxiety and grief, and using dance as therapy. We are going to get into so many different ways to take care of your sweet and precious mind in this episode. And before we get into that, I do want to remind you, babes, that CHM enrollment closes today. So if you are listening to this episode the day that it comes out, it is the last day to enroll in my program Confidence, the Heels Method, before 2023. And so the next round won't open for enrollment until around March. So if you are ready to take on the new year in your confidence, in your power, learn how to dance in a heel and do it alongside some amazing women in this sacred sisterhood, then just click the link below in the show notes to learn more about the program. Before we get into this episode, I do have a beautiful manifestation to share with you, babes. So something that I've been manifesting for a while now is a puppy, and I honestly can't even believe I'm saying this because it has been such a long time coming. And yesterday Luke surprised me with a puppy. You guys, it's the cutest puppy I've ever seen, and he honestly had me so fooled. Like, this has been going on apparently for months now, and he never let on. It was very much like, it's not the right time, like, let's just wait. We plan on doing some traveling in the spring. So he really just kind of had me convinced that this is something that we were going to wait for. And I've had a puppy, specifically a mini golden doodle, on my vision board for 2 years now. And I honestly just kind of let it go. I kind of just released the expectation of the when and the how. And honestly, you guys, every time I do this, my manifestation comes through. When I just let it go, I'm not trying to force it. I'm not trying to put pressure on it at all. I'm just in that receiving mode and allowing the universe to work its magic. That's when things happen. And so Luke had me convinced that we were going to someone's house to pick up a gift for our niece from Facebook Marketplace or something. And when we get there, he was like, there's a surprise upstairs for you. And this little pile of gorgeous baby mini golden doodles was upstairs, and I got to pick which one we wanted, and he will be coming home with us in 2 weeks. And so I'm just in full dog mom mode, prepping for this sweet little baby to come be part of our family, and I am over the moon. And I think this really ties in with this episode because I really do feel like this is going to support my mental health in such a beautiful way, because I do work from home and I do spend a lot of time alone. And so I think this is going to be something really special for me, and it's something that I made a conscious effort about. I realized that me being home all the time wasn't the best thing for my mental health. Me being inside a lot, especially having your own business. You can just work so much, and being a dancer, like you're inside a lot of times. And so it's really good for me to have an excuse to get outside of our home and to be in nature. And so this just kind of checks all of those boxes. So I am so beyond excited. And this is just kind of a sweet reminder that if you have a manifestation that you've been dreaming about, maybe it's for 2 years, maybe it's longer than that, that you feel like isn't coming through, do not give up on that manifestation. It will come through in the divine timing. I truly believe that. And so anyway, just a sweet little note to start the episode on. And there will definitely be a lot of photos and videos to come that I will be sharing with you, babes, as soon as we get to pick him up and take him home in a few weeks. All right, my love. So let's dive into this episode all about mental health. And I am super passionate about this topic because if our mental health isn't good, nothing is good, because our mind, the things that we're thinking, the repetitive things that we're thinking, all of those things are affecting our energy. They're affecting our happiness, our confidence, and everything. So if our mental health isn't taken care of, we can't achieve all of these things that we want to, like confidence, like feeling good in our bodies, and things like that. So that's why mental health is so important to take a look at and to be really honest with ourselves about where we are with our mental health. So for me, my mental health was pretty good, I would say, overall, except for like my body image and stuff like that. I had a pretty good relationship with my mental health. I never really noticed myself spiraling and things like that or having anxiety until I started dating a narcissist. So I started dating a narcissist back in 2018 roughly, or maybe a little bit before that, around the end of 2017. It was not Luke. It was someone different, a dancer. And what narcissists do is that they know your weaknesses and they use them as leverage. They use them as a form of control. They play off of them. They highlight them. And so my self-esteem was pretty much shot when that relationship ended. And I really noticed it taking a nosedive at that point in my life because I really didn't have a sense of who I was anymore. I really felt like I wasn't good enough, and I felt like I would never be worthy and those type of things. And I was also just very fearful of life because a few points in our relationship, I was actually scared for my life. Like, it was very serious. And so those are the points in your life where I feel like when traumatic events happen, it can trigger things like mental health anxiety that may be hereditary or that may, be kind of like in the background of your subconscious, but not really be fully prevalent until something brings it to the forefront of your mind. And then the second time that I really noticed it was actually around the same time. It was just a few months after I decided to go off of my birth control pill. So I've been on birth control since a very young age. I think I was 13 when I first went on the pill, and they put me on it for my acne, of all things. I had really severe acne, and that's not great when you're in middle school and high school and you're just discovering who you are and you're dealing with acne and you're also dealing with what people think of you, and you're really self-conscious about your image. And I also started dancing around that time. So anyway, that was kind of the solution at the time. When you had acne as a woman, you would go on birth control, which is so ridiculous. But anyway, that's what it was. And so when I went off birth control in 2018, I had been on it for a really long time. And as soon as I went off of it, like my whole body just freaked out. So I started having severe bloating. My back was really, really bad around that time. Like it would just go out completely and I would be lying down for days. I was dealing with the trauma of this relationship, and it was just a lot at one time. My skin was really inflamed. So much was happening. And so once again, nosedive with my mental health. And the third time that it really happened was when I started dancing burlesque, and my family reacted not great. And, that was so much pressure on me because my family was very upset, and the only result that they wanted was for me to stop dancing, and that wasn't going to happen. And so I really had this inner battle of wanting to people please because I had done that my entire life. And this other side of me, the side of me that was really trying to grow and break out of my shell and step into this new version of myself, did not want to do that, did not want to people please. But in not people pleasing, I was having a lot of anxiety around worrying and stressing if I would get another phone call or text message or something during that time that was really triggering. And so all of those things, those were multiple moments in my life where I really felt it decline. And I always had tools and people and things that helped to bring me out of those spaces. I was never stuck in them for very long, but I did have them and they did feel very intense. And then other times that it's declined has been through grief, which we will get into. And then I was on the birth control pill again because after the first time I went back on it because I was like, I can't deal with this. Like, I'm competing in dance. I can't be having hormonal breakouts and my back going out and all of these things. So I went back on the pill because I really didn't know any other solution. And then about a few months ago, I can't even remember exactly when it was, but I started having crazy thoughts, suicidal thoughts, terrible, bad thoughts. And I knew that they weren't mine. Like, I knew they weren't mine. I knew that they felt outside of my control because there was no reason for me to be feeling these things. Like, I was happy, my business was going well, I'm married, life's good. And it's like, why am I having these insane thoughts and feelings? And so I immediately knew that it was the birth control pill because so many women have said that the birth control pill makes them feel crazy. It makes them feel completely out of touch. It makes them feel like they don't want to be here anymore. And that is just such a horrible side effect that I feel like is not talked about enough. So anyway, I went off the birth control pill and my mental health has been a lot better since then. But whatever the reason is for your mental health not being at its best, knowing why can really give you power over it. There's so many different factors and reasons, but if you kind of like break it down, be like, what has changed? Is it a substance that I've been taking or drinking or using, or is it a situation that makes me anxious or that causes my mental health to spiral? Is it a certain person that affects my mental health? Is it body image? Is it grief? When we know what it is exactly, we can target the problem with a healing modality. And again, this doesn't have to be like super specific, but you kind of have to have an idea of what's triggering it, I feel like, in order to diminish the side effects that you're getting from your mental health. And so I also feel like some of this is hereditary, and it's also partially like nurture from our parents or grandparents. I know my mom has had a lot of struggles with her mental health. My grandmother did. And so something that seems to run in the family. And so knowing that is also, again, another way for you to take your power back and decide that that doesn't have to be your future. It's so important to realize how many people, unfortunately, struggle with mental health. And I think knowing that fact can make you feel less alone during a time where maybe you might be in this really dark headspace and you feel very isolated. Looking to people who have gone through something similar has been really powerful for me, and just knowing that everyone has ebbs and flows with their mental health. I think the words mental health used to be so stigmatized, like, oh, you were crazy and needed to be in a psych ward. It's like, no, we have unfortunately come to a place in the society where most people have some sort of mental health struggle, and that's due to a lot of different reasons that we won't get into today, but that's just our reality. And so again, you're not alone. And this is not just a you problem, it's a collective problem. And even something as simple as like seasonal depression, well, not simple, but like the seasons changing. It's kind of one of those things where we may not think too much about it, but the days getting shorter and darker, like that can be challenging. It can be like, again, isolating, and there's not as much light and happiness, and the leaves are gone from the trees, and it's kind of like a shedding period. And so it's easy for us to fall into that state of like sadness and depression during the winter months. And so knowing that, again, you can start to bring in little things in your life that bring you joy to kind of replace maybe the things that you did during the summer. Just inserting joy as much as possible has been super helpful for me. And again, I think getting this puppy will be a great way for me to be outside more and to be more joyful on a daily basis. But even something as simple as like going to a new restaurant or coffee shop during the day, or taking like a little drive or a hike or meeting up with a friend, scheduling things in your calendar that bring you that lightness and that happiness. That way, when the days are darker and shorter, you don't feel so affected because you're filling your life with so many different beautiful things in addition to that kind of help to steer your focus in another direction. I think that can be really helpful. It's all about really just embracing the season, quite literally, that we're in. And so I just did a workshop with my CHM alumni, which is my High Vibe Heals membership. And we just did a workshop on the art of coziness. And honestly, it seems so silly, but focusing on being cozy during the colder months and like lighting candles and stringing up some lights on the wall and putting on a record and making a cozy meal, all of those things have been really helpful for me to, again, find joy in the mundane, find joy in the months that tend to be a little bit more sad and that we tend to notice the harsher realities of the world, find our focus in something beautiful and something that lights us up. So let's go ahead and dive a bit into anxiety. So anxiety is something that I have really experienced ever since the whole burlesque situation with my family and really coming out about my dance career and all the things. And it can be so crippling. You know what I'm talking about. The heart palpitations, the panic attacks, the social stress. It's overwhelming and crippling, quite frankly. And I'm definitely an introvert. And so anxiety creeps in slowly, especially during the colder months. You know, we're home more often. It's chilly outside. We're not at as many social gatherings. And I can find myself being a severe hermit. And what comes along with this anxiety and what I feel like triggers it is things like worrying about my family and their health, or worrying about what others think of me, making assumptions about people's perceptions of me. And I'm actually reading the 4 agreements right now, and that's one of the agreements, is to not make assumptions, because when we make assumptions, we are causing so much unneeded anxiety and stress for ourselves, and we don't even know the situation. We're just completely fabricating this whole scenario in our mind, and it's not even real. And so trying not to make assumptions about what people think about you or what they're saying about you or whatever has been a really eye-opening concept for me. And I feel like anxiety also comes a lot from us not being present. So we're either focusing on the past or we're worried about the future. And again, that's tying it back to the art of coziness and like being really intentional during times where maybe we're home more often or whether our life is feeling a little bit slower and mundane. It's like being present and trying not to future trip or trying not to worry about things that happened in the past, really focusing on being intentional in the present. And another thing too that I know I feel very anxious about is sometimes thinking about how I acted in a certain social situation or what I said to someone, or overanalyzing everything, a conversation, that type of thing. And so I know that's very easy to do. And someone who I really admire about her honesty with this is Katie Dalebout. I have listened to her podcast for years now, and that's something that she was talking about. And it gave me so much pause to know that I'm not the only person that goes through that. And I hope that also helps you to feel less alone, because we all do it, right? We are all so concerned about what we can't control. We're concerned about other people's feelings and opinions of us. And those two things, what we can't control and other people's perceptions, which is also what we can't control, are really hard to let go of. But when we do, when we find those moments in the in-between where we aren't worried about those things, it is really beautiful and really calming, versus when we are worrying about those things, it's very heightened and anxious and unnecessarily stressful. And then another thing that I know comes up so much around this time is grief. And wow, this subject is so hard because there is no right way to handle grief. I feel like everyone handles it differently. And again, there's really no right way to handle any of this. This is just my personal experience and opinions on these things. But I went through a period in the last year where my family's pup passed away in a really sad and traumatic way, and then my husband's sister passed away about a month later in a really sad and traumatic way. And then in February, my granddad, who was one of the most incredible, special people in my life, and his wife passed away very suddenly within days of each other. And so that was 1 year of pure, nonstop grief and trauma. And the pain has been a lot to manage. I'm not going to lie. I have really just been doing my best to get through this year. And also just the worry of another shoe dropping. I feel like when we go through grief and pain, that's what we expect, is more grief and pain. And all that's doing is causing us even more grief and pain. It's just like a vicious cycle. And so we are all moving through so much shit, and life can feel overwhelming. But you know what we do have control over? And that's how we handle that overwhelm and sadness. And it's fine to feel sad. It is totally normal and okay to feel sad and angry and upset and all of the things that come along with grief. Like, I find myself fluctuating through those things on a regular basis. But are we going to numb those things? Or are we going to be proactive and do something that increases our energy and raises our vibration and kind of gets our mind off of the things that we could really spiral around? And doing something to make yourself even feel 0.001% better is better than nothing. Like, it doesn't have to be a lot. Some days all I could manage was like a walk outside or watching a funny TV show on Netflix, and that was fine. That's what I needed that day. Just knowing that this is not about perfection or achieving a certain goal or anything like that when it comes to grief. It's really just, okay, this is horrible. This sucks. How can I get through it? Essentially, like, how can I get through this? How can I continue to live even when it feels really, really challenging? And that's really what it's all about. Nobody else can make us feel better. It's up to us. It's up to us to work through the pain, to not push it down, to acknowledge that it's there, and then also to try to lift ourselves up, to lift our spirits, to bring ourselves some sort of joy in some way, some sort of lightness in all of the darkness. Grief, again, it's a natural human experience. Everyone goes through it, and it's the worst part about this life, in my opinion, is grief. But you, again, are not alone. And first of all, I'm always here for you. And then second of all, there's so many people around the world going through something similar. And again, just knowing that makes me feel at peace. Like, I'm not the only one that has ever had to deal with something like this. If you are going through grief right now, just know that it does get better. I know that everyone says that and it's like, shut up. But it really does. It doesn't mean it's not sad some days, and I miss the people that I've lost every single day. Something reminds me of them. But it's like a peace that I have, knowing that in my heart, I know I will reconnect with them one day. And so it's kind of like that hope for me that keeps me sane. And whatever it is that you believe or however you choose to look at it, I hope you do find that peace within yourself. And I feel like a lot of that can come from all the things that we are about to talk about, which is how to move through each of these individual pieces. So if you're struggling with your mental health, if you're struggling with anxiety, if you're struggling with grief, I have so many different things that I've used to help me overcome those things, to move through them, to find some sort of joy and happiness in them, which is really what my work is all about. It's all about showing women what's possible for them and showing them that healing is possible and happiness is possible, and that you are never, ever, ever stuck in anything, any type of situation, any type of mental state. You are never stuck. And all of the recommendations that I'm going to be giving you are just my personal experiences and things that I've used that have really helped me. Of course, this is going to be so different. Like if you have some sort of mental health diagnosis, or you do suffer with depression or any other type of mental illness. So I know nothing about those things. I'm not a doctor, but these are just things that have helped me improve my mental health in so many different ways. And so the first way is getting off of my birth control. And now, again, this is a very personal experience, but for me, birth control was very scary. towards the end of my run with it. I've been on it over 10 years at this point, and I noticed that a lot with women. The longer that they've been on it, the harsher the side effects can be. And for me, I literally could not wait any longer. I had to go I had to go immediately to get off of it, because that was how scary it felt to be in the mental state that I was in. And so you can do your own research on that, but a few books that really helped me to understand why I was having these side effects from birth control and what I could do as an alternative was Beyond the Pill by Jolene Brighten, amazing book, and In the Flow by Alyssa VT. Both of these books were really powerful. And so instead of being on birth control, I started tracking my cycle using the DAISY method, which is like taking your internal basal body temperature and things like that. I'm also on a ton of supplements and things to help balance out my hormones. And I'm really being proactive about taking care of my health in other ways versus just having a birth control pill to cover up all the side effects. So that's what I'm doing for birth control, because honestly, I've never been in a worse mental state in my entire life. And that's what I've heard from so many women who are on the pill. Another thing that I did for my mental health is I unfollowed people on Instagram who didn't serve me in any way, or if I found myself comparing against them, nothing that they did at all. It was just a personal thing for me. So really just going on like an unfollowing spree helped a lot. And then I also turned some family member notifications off on my phone. So I just kind of put them on Do Not Disturb. That way, if I'm working or if I'm trying to stay really focused and I get a message from someone, it's not going to throw my day completely off. Like, I'm not going to see it unless I consciously go into my messages and read it. That was a really great way for me to take my power back over my anxiety. And then I turn my phone off after 9 or 10 p.m. Usually. I've not been great at this lately, but that does help me a lot to wind down before bed and to kind of get my mental health off of like social media and the news and that kind of thing, and focus more on just like myself and my partner. And then I only watch things that make me happy. You guys, this is so important. I cannot watch scary movies. I do not watch sad, depressing shit. I really take care of the things that are coming into my subconscious mind, because everything we watch and read and take in, it's making its way into our subconscious. And so those things just don't serve me, and I'm fine with that. I watch funny things. I watch shows like Selling Sunset and Bachelor in Paradise and things that are just like silly and lighthearted and make me happy. Specifically in regards to anxiety, I'm really conscious and mindful of how others make me feel. So if I notice that I'm taking in people's energies a lot, I try to, as much as possible, kind of put up this barrier or this wall between myself and other people's energy. That's their own stuff that they have going on. It's not about me. And anytime that I find myself stuck in this mindset of this person's acting this way or talking this way or being this way to me because of me, I'm like, oh no, whoa, that's not the case. You know that it's all about what they've got going on internally. And so knowing that is really beautiful and just kind of helps take some of that pressure off of you, even though it's really challenging. I know it is, but it's a mindset shift that we have to constantly evolve and constantly work on, just like a muscle. And then, of course, tapping. I'm going to promote tapping and dance in every single podcast episode, because those have truly been the two biggest game changers in my mental health and my confidence and all the things. And so let's say you're having a day where you are very stressed about something and you're very anxious and you can feel your heart like racing and your palms are sweaty and you're just like in one of those anxiety-ridden moments. Tapping on it immediately. So tapping on whichever of the points that you want to. I have so many free tapping videos on my YouTube channel. So if you're curious about how to tap or what the points are, all of those things are in my mini tapping videos on YouTube. But let's say you want to kind of create your in the moment tapping script. So you would just tap on one of the points. Let's say you're tapping on the temples. That's a really easy place to tap. And you would just tap and say, even though I'm feeling really stressed and anxious and I want to just crawl back in my bed, I deeply and completely love and accept myself anyway. And you just kind of talk yourself through what you're feeling, and then that you deeply and completely love and accept yourself, and then replace it with a positive belief. So I'm feeling anxious right now, but I know that that's not how I'm going to feel. Or something that kind of shifts the narrative from I am this to instead, this is what I want to embody. That's kind of how my tapping sessions work. We get really honest about how we're feeling. We love and accept ourselves through it, and then we replace it with positive, uplifting beliefs. Another thing that has been really hard for me, but also I have to acknowledge that it does affect my anxiety levels, is coffee and caffeine. So yesterday, good example, I had a latte out. It's the holiday season. I'm obsessed with peppermint mochas. So I always get an oat milk peppermint mocha wherever I go. If it's a Starbucks, half sweet, because my gosh, the amount of sugar. But if it's not Starbucks, usually the local coffee shops here don't make them super sweet. So that is my current order, and I love it. And yesterday I taught a live class for my CHM alumni. So I had a coffee early in the morning to get myself going, and then I had one in the afternoon. And I can handle 2 coffees that I make, but I cannot handle a coffee out in addition to the coffee that I make. Like, so much caffeine, my body does not handle it. And I had severe anxiety all day. Even though yesterday was an amazing day because we met our little pup, I was struggling. And so that's something that really affects me. Again, it's just that radical self-honesty, knowing what affects you and really trying to put into practice the knowledge that you already have and taking care of your mental health in all the ways that you can. And for me, that's one of them. And then also less alcohol. I'm a wine girl, but I've noticed recently that the more that I have wine at night or out with friends on the weekends and things like that, the worse my mental health tends to be, especially like early in the morning and things like that. It takes me longer to get going. I'm a little bit more anxious. Again, radical self-honesty. What doesn't serve you, either limit it or just let it go completely. And then another thing too, this kind of goes along with the social media piece, but honestly, I do not listen to, watch any news. To me, it is incredibly depressing. My heart, mind, body, soul, all of it cannot take the really sad things that happen in the world. And so if something's important that's going on globally, of course, like I'll hear about it from Luke or I'll see something on Instagram. But for the most part, news is not something that's part of my day. And even like astrology. So I am a big fan of astrology, but I'm not a fan of like doom and gloom astrology. I love birth chart astrology, but I don't necessarily love like predictive astrology. I feel like it really stresses me out. And I was actually listening to a podcast right before this, and it was an astrology podcast. I'm not going to say the podcast that it was because she's a really sweet woman. But for the most part, I just do not need to be listening to podcast episodes that kind of predict the astrology in the future or the week ahead or the month ahead. Like, it's just not good for me for the most part. And so that's something I know about myself and I can ditch it. And again, we touched on this before, but intentionality, mindfulness, creating a sacred space. So diffusing essential oils, taking the time to put on some mood music and like get cozy in your space. Those things have been so healing for me, like taking time to read, romanticize my life and the things that I do, even if it's as simple as like baking something in the kitchen or things like that, folding laundry even. Like, I try to make everything just fun and create a vibe or a cozy aesthetic with most things that I do. It just makes me really, really happy. And also getting my hands in things. So whether that is cooking or crafting and things like that, that can be really nourishing if you're experiencing anxiety. Now, let's say that you're moving through grief or you've been grieving for a while now. Something that really helped me in the early days and the really hard days of some of the grieving that we've done the last year was yoga. So just really slow movement where you just focus on the breath and not your thoughts. Focusing on breathing can really distract you from everything that's going on within your mind. And also just allowing yourself to cry and to release. So hip openers and yoga are really beautiful for releasing emotions. And all of this, again, it's not about ignoring the emotions or pushing them down. It's about letting them come when they need to come. And that's been something that's been really helpful for me, because if we push our emotions down when we're grieving, they're going to come up at some point. And usually they're going to come up as like anger, retaliation against the people that we love. And that's not something that we want. And so allowing those emotions to be free. And Journal Speak has been such a great way for me to get my emotions out, especially when you're going through the anger process of grief. Journal Speak, I've talked about it again in so many episodes, but it's a process of journaling where it's really unfiltered. Like, you put things in that journal that if someone read them, they would think you were crazy. And I learned this from Nicole Sachs when I was trying to heal my back pain. And honestly, I feel like it's one of the key reasons why I did heal my back pain. And get angry, like get upset, like put down what you really feel. I mean, a lot of mine, I feel like, was just screaming through words when I was going through grief. And so that process has been really helpful, and I come back to it anytime that I need to. I feel like I've been feeling a lot of grief around the holidays right now because it's the first holiday season without my granddad, and he was such an essential part of our Christmases and Thanksgivings. Like, he made me excited for the holiday season. So this year it's been like very strange and kind of empty not having him in the holiday season and adjusting to, like, even we just had Thanksgiving, adjusting to Thanksgiving without him. It is sad. And so Journal Speak is something that I constantly go back to when I have those moments. And then spending time with people you love. There is nothing more nourishing to me than doing things around the holidays with my family, like baking cookies and decorating the Christmas tree, and things like that bring me so much joy. And it's amazing because my family and Luke's family are actually like doing holidays and stuff together now. So because my family is very small and he doesn't really have a lot of family, extended family left, we did Thanksgiving together and we plan to do Christmas together. And like, how special is that our families are spending the holidays together? So it's a really sweet and special experience for us to all be in one place together and just having fun and laughing. It's just so nourishing for my soul. And then of course, you babes know, dance. Dance, dance, dance. I will scream it from the rooftops forever and always, but dance for mental health. Babes, it fills your body with positivity and high vibe energy. Movement is truly medicine. And honestly, like, if I notice my mental health's low, I will check in and be like, have I danced in a while? Like today, I have a dance class on my calendar because I have not done it in a while. And I know how much dancing in a heel is so healing for me. I know how happy it makes me. And so I make sure to put it on the calendar and check it off every single week. And dance for anxiety as well. So it gets you out of your head and into your body. That's something I say at the beginning of all of my classes. That's the point. And that's why so many of us have anxiety, because we're so detached from our bodies. So getting out of our head into our body and really being present there helps reduce that anxiety significantly. And then dance for grief. So it's a healthy way to process your emotions. When I had just lost my granddad and I was just so angry and so upset, I took a dance class with Kayla Brenda. I can't remember which one. I feel like it was Orion's Belt or something. I can't remember. It was slow and sexy and emotional, and I just started bawling at the end of the class and just released so much of that anger and emotion and sadness through my body. And honestly, it just made me feel so much better after, because I let it out and it didn't have to sit in my subconscious. It didn't have to sit on top of my heart like this big giant weight. I could let it go through movement. And that's why I am so adamant about healing in a heel. And that's why I'm so adamant about dance being therapy, because dance processes emotions and it heals in a way that not many things can. And for me, nothing could match the way that dancing made me feel or the way that it allowed me to heal. And I see that time and time again as I go through mental health struggles and anxiety and grief and all these things. It's like dance is the one thing I always come back to and I always see results from. And so that's why I share it with you, babes, and that's why I do the work that I do, because I believe in it so deeply. So I hope this episode was helpful and supportive for you. I know these things are heavy. Go ahead and just give everything a little shake, shake it out, dance a little bit, move your body. I know it's heavy, but also it can be really light at the end of the tunnel. So I'm sending you so much love. I know things can be hard, and the goal is not to never have bad days or to never feel shitty. That is just not achievable or realistic. but it's to have less of those days and to have a way to feel good even when things around us feel challenging and chaotic. And so all of these tools that I gave you, if you do one of them, if you do all of them, like, you will see such drastic difference in your mental health. And if you ever need support regarding your mental health or just someone to talk to, please always reach out to me on Instagram at @AshlynTorrey or at hi.vibe.heals, and I would love to chat with you and just be a support system for you, because I know that can also be really helpful as well. And if you're ready to really move through all of these things, improve your mental health, reduce your anxiety, heal through grief and trauma, and all of the things that we talked about in this episode, I really encourage you to hop on a call with me and learn more about confidence. I've had women come into this program with a lot of mental health struggles and come out on the other side radiant and confident and victorious. And that is nothing that I did, it is because they did the work that's in this program. This work is healing, and I would never ever promote it if it wasn't. I would not be so passionate about it if I didn't believe in it, because it healed me, and I know that it can heal you too if you're listening. So enrollment closes tonight at 11 p.m. and then the next round of confidence will be around March or April. I love you, babes, to the moon and back. I hope you have such a beautiful and magical day, and I will chat with you all next week. Mwah. Thank you, babes, so much for joining me today. If you love this podcast, I would really appreciate it if you gave us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes. It really helps the podcast to be discovered by all of the amazing women who could benefit from this work and from healing in a heel. Also, don't forget to follow along on Instagram at Studio Slowly Luna and on YouTube to stay up to date on all the heels, burlesque, and spirituality content that your soul desires.